Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today I want to share with you my September reading wrap up. We're going to talk about all the books that I managed to finish this month, as well as some reading stats that have to do with my goal of reaching a 0 TBR this year, which there's not so much left of this year to finish a TBR, so just throwing that out there. Also, this was my penultimate month of my sabbatical. I only have October left now, which is pretty crazy. So I think I will talk a little bit more about that at the end of the video. So if you're here for the bookish stuff, you don't have to stay for the live stuff. But if you're interested in both, I will give you both. So let's start out with the stats for this month. So just as a little reminder, I started out the year with 37 books on my TBR, and the goal was to read that down to 0. In September, I managed to finish 14 books, which is like the most books I have finished so far this year, but it was also because I read a few shorter books this month. So page-wise, August was still my best reading month, but book-wise, September did a little bit better because of the short books. Then I also bought 3 books in September, so that's quite a reasonable number, I guess. I'm okay with that. And last but not least, I borrowed 6 books from the library in September, which is more than I want. This number is a little bit too high, but oh well, we somehow end up here every single month. In September, I also returned 2 books to the library unread, so these 2 books will get off of the TBR for now, and I will get them back at a later point, probably next year, because I still want to read them, but yeah, the time just wasn't right now. So if we take this all together, we have 14 books read, 3 books bought, 6 books borrowed, and 2 library books returned unread. We have reduced the TBR by 7 books in September. And this is the same number that I had in August, so far this is the best reduction number I have achieved this year. So I'm very proud of myself for doing it once again, minus 7 books of the TBR. So that leaves us with a TBR of 38. Because at the start of September, my TBR was at 45. I forgot to mention that before. But yeah, now we're at 38. So we are 1 book above where we started the year. So here you have it. This is how the TBR reduction is going. Really great. But I'm happy to be under 40. I'm happy to be so close to where we started the year. And obviously it is like 38 other books than the ones I started the year with, because I have been chipping away at the books that I've had for a very long time, but that also meant that some of the new books I acquired, I didn't read right away. So it's a bit of a balance here, but yeah, I'm happy that we are getting back down to that number so I can dedicate the rest of the year to actually bring it down to 0. Okay, so after these stats, now we're going into the book reviews. So if you remember, at the start of the month, I was still in Italy, which is so wild to me that that is now a month ago already, somehow. But I was reading my Italy book still, which was My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. This is a very hyped book. This is also the first book in a series with 4 books. And so I was very intrigued to read this one. I have the German copy of it, and I never really realized how chunky it was, but it read quite easily, and so it wasn't like a big deal to finish. Now, in this book, we follow 2 girls who have a weird friendship, and it starts out when they're still like children, and then we watch them grow into teenagers and young adults and starting to make their like first own life choices, the things that connect them over time, but also how they're kind of growing apart and all of that. So this book is quite violent. There is a lot of violence and parental abuse depicted in this book. There is also sexual abuse depicted in this book. So I would say check content warnings for this book. I didn't love how violent it was and how the violence was portrayed in the book, but I guess it is kind of authentic. I don't know. I haven't lived in that time in that area, so what do I know? All in all, this book for me was very disappointing. The way people hype this up, I do not understand. This was an okay read, like I didn't hate it, but all of the people are pretending like this is the best novel that was written. And I think it even is like number one on one of those like New York Times lists or whatever. I don't understand that. I gave it 3.5 stars. I'm not mad that I've read it, but also I did not need this in my life. And then I also finished my Italy audiobook, which, yeah, took me way too long for how short this book is. It's Blood, Water, Paint by Joy McCullough. This is a kind of retelling in verse of the life of Artemisia, whatever her last name is. I always forget, but she painted in the Renaissance time, I think. And her like case was the first one, or it's like a very famous like early trial because of rape. So bear in mind that again we have sexual abuse in this book. This was a month where a surprising amount of my books had sexual abuse in them, which did not love that, but whatever. So in this book, I obviously knew going into it that it would have that because I knew the like life facts of Artemisia. I did enjoy this one. However, by the end, it also left me a little bit like questioning whether we really need this book, especially as it is targeted towards a younger audience. And if you read this book, her case didn't really go anywhere. It didn't really have any consequences for the man who did it. And so it's really like a story of, yeah, you can bring that to the justice system, but don't expect anyone to care. In the end, that's kind of what happened. So I gave this one 4 stars because I don't think it's a bad book, but I still haven't really figured out how many of these stories we need as like YA stories. Also, there were some things about the writing that didn't like work for me, or maybe didn't work so well in the audio format. So yeah, I have a little bit mixed feelings about that one. Then I finished my first book for the Magical Readathon, and that was A Certain Hunger by Chelsea G. Summers. This is a cannibalism book, and it was definitely an experience, and I enjoyed this book, but I think that you might not have the same experience because this has a very distinct narrative voice in the writing. This is written as kind of like a almost like an autobiography or like the kind of confession of this woman who is a food critic but also murdered and ate men. And so this one kind of mixes very delicious food descriptions with cannibalism, and that is definitely a mood. Like the meals she describes without any humans involved, very, very good. Like I would like to try them, but the other ones I don't feel so comfortable about. So definitely an interesting mix. I did really like the writing style. This main character has a very kind of arrogant voice, but I feel like it makes sense. She also describes herself as a psychopath, so this is kind of like the vibe that you get from this book. But overall, I had a fun time and I gave it 4 stars as well. Then the next book I finished was Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. Now, again, a book I have mixed feelings about. I have read Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell last year, absolutely loved it, fantastic book, would highly recommend. However, Piranesi is very different and still has like very similar themes to that book, which I found interesting. However, the way Piranesi as a book has always been sold to me is that this is a book where you don't know what's going on and it's like so confusing and all of that. But when I read it, the reality is that the main character has no idea what's going on, while I figured it out very early on in the book and then just waited for the main character to really figure it out on himself, While there were some kind of reveals that I didn't particularly see coming, like in the details, the overall idea I had of what's going on was exactly what was going on. So in the end, I kind of felt disappointed, even though this was a very engaging read. Like, I definitely wanted to see how Piranesi will come to the conclusions, and I liked following him. I really liked this idea of playing with reality and just showing how what is our reality really shapes how we view the world. So that was like great. I definitely thought that was an intriguing concept. But then again, I wanted this book to be something I couldn't figure out. And so in the end, I gave it 4 stars, but I kind of feel weird about it. Then finally, we have one book that I did not feel weird about, and that was Pictures from Italy by Charles Dickens. This is a very particular book for a very particular reader, I guess, because this literally is Dickens writing about how he's traveling through Italy. And I bought this when I was in Venice. I had no idea Charles Dickens had written a book about Italy, so when I saw this, I snatched it up. And the fun thing is that he traveled to all of the places where I have traveled to in my last trip, and then also some other ones I had been to before. So what he's describing in this book, these places, I know. I have been there. So for me, this was a great experience because I saw these same places, but through a different lens, because obviously this book was written in the 1840s, so very different vibe. At that point, Italy wasn't even a nation yet. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. However, would I say go out and read this? Probably not, but if you really like Italy, or if you've recently been, or if you're planning to do a tour through Italy, this might be a fun thing to pick up. I think that Charles Dickens would have been a really fun guy to travel with. I think we would have liked and disliked very similar things. So his commentary was definitely a fun experience for me. My favorite thing about this book, and the chapter I would absolutely give 5 stars to, is the chapter about Venice in here. I think it's just called An Italian Dream, and it was just perfection, and it actually made me cry because I love Venice so much. So I love this. I gave it 4 stars. Next, I finished an audiobook for the Magic Readathon, and that was Butter Honey Pig Bread by Francesca Ekwuyasi. And this is a book where we follow twins. And again, I had a surprising amount of books where we follow twins in September. And in this book, we have 2 girls, twins, and their mother, and we follow them as they come together after many, many years in, I think, Nigeria. I'm already forgetting again because my brain is so bad. But basically, the 3 women are in the same house for the first time in many, many years. And we start learning why they haven't been together, and also kind of their life's stories. We do focus a little bit more on the twins than on their mom, but we do also get the mom's story as well. I did enjoy this one quite a bit. I didn't expect it to be so queer, so that was a pleasant surprise. One of the twins is a woman who is interested in other women, and they also have queer friends that they talk about. And this is also a book that kind of spans a lot of countries, because one of the sisters goes to Canada, the other one goes to the UK, into France, and so we do see like a lot of the world as well, and how they navigate these spaces and what they do there. So this is a book about pretty much everything. It's about love and family, it's about finding your people, it's about queerness and the struggle, but also the joy of it. So in the end, I really liked how well-rounded this book was, and that it never felt like it started something that it couldn't finish, or put something in just for the shock value. Now, this book again had a sexual violence as well, and then also just like some queer trauma stuff that is talked about. So again, I would recommend checking the content warnings for this book. In the end, I gave this one 4.5 stars. And then I finished reading Somadina by Akwaeke Emezi. This is their new YA fantasy book, and I was very, very excited for this one because I love pets so much. However, this one, again, is one I feel a little bit weird about. And also, it follows twins again. so many twins, and it also has one instance of sexual violence in it as well. So in this one, we follow twins. We have a girl and a boy, and they are born to a mother who suffer from a lot of miscarriages in the past. So again, content warnings for this book. There's a lot of like sad and dark stuff in this book. And when finally the mother managed to have a daughter, then she got pregnant again and she had the twins. But the twins are kind of regarded as strange in their community. Again, this is inspired by Nigerian folklore and stuff. So we do have kind of similar themes and similar inspirations for this one and for Butter Honey Pig Bread, because that one also had kind of like a mythological, kind of like magical realism edge to it. And in this one, we go full fantasy with these themes. So what I didn't really love about this book is our main character of Somadina. She is kind of portrayed as the more like the one that feels more than thinks, while her brother is the one that thinks more than feels, I guess. He's the calmer one, the smarter one, while she is very hot, if it makes sense. So yeah, and basically it takes a long time, but at some point the brother gets taken by this mysterious hunter, and so Medina wants to get him back. There is a lot of pain in this book. The way especially the mother feels towards her children is super painful to read about, but also the way this community is viewing these teenagers and judging them for things they have. It's not their fault, but they're still being judged for it. So yeah, this was definitely a hard read. I didn't really love the ending. I think the ending was like very confused, and I didn't love the way that the main character kind of treats people around her in the end, which obviously has to do with her trauma, but also it was just, there was a lot going on. And in the end of the book, Akwaeke Emezi talks about how this was a story they wrote a very long time ago and very quickly, and I guess this is the cleaned up version of that, and it very much feels like that. I think that by now Akwaeke Emezi is a much better storyteller, and so ultimately I gave this one 4 stars. Like, it wasn't bad, but if you expect a 5-star, you know, every single thing hurts. So now we have made our way through some of the weird books. Now we're getting into the really, really great books, because I had some of those as well. And the first one of them was Queer Love in Color by Jamal Jordan. This is kind of a coffee table book where you have beautiful photography of couples of color, and then also kind of their stories that, yeah, it was just nice. It was such a nice book. Now, especially with how everything's going in the world right now, I feel like sometimes you just need a pick-me-up. You need a collection of real-life stories that are uplifting, that are beautiful, that make you smile, that make you believe that there's good people out there and good things happen to them. And this book is exactly that. The photographies were also very sweet. I just really had a good time with this, so I would recommend if you just need a little ray of sunshine in your life. And so I gave that one 4.5 stars. And the next book I finished was A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandanna. This is the new cozy witchy book by this author. She wrote the Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches as well. Those books are not related in any way. They're not set in the same world or anything. They're just both cozy witchy books. So just to clear that up. But I really love both of them. I gave Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping 4.5 stars. I really loved it. It was so warm and cozy and still had stakes and still had like stuff going on. It was the perfect mix for me personally. So in this one, we follow a witch who had like a very, very high potential when she was a teenager. She was like the most powerful witch of her generation. However, she's living with her aunt in this inn, and one day she finds her aunt and she has passed away in the garden. And so she is so like distraught by that she uses her magic to bring her aunt and that chicken back to life. The chicken was a mistake. However, because of that, she loses her magic. Like, this is a spell that just used up so much of her magic that now is lost. It can't regenerate anymore. And then we do a bit of a time jump, and she's now in her 30s and trying to live her life, but still kind of mourning losing her powers in that way, and then also being kind of pushed out of the magical guild and stuff. So at this point in time, she's running the inn with her aunt. There is some very strange people who live at the inn because she put a spell on it when she was a teenager that only people who really needed the inn could find it. And so, yeah, it's like this like very quirky group of people who live at the inn, and it's cute, it's cozy. The love interest is also a witch, and he is a very academic person, but he also takes care of his sister, and the sister is on the autism spectrum, so she has a very hard time kind of fitting in. And it's also about like making room in that sense. Like, the magical inn very much is about like fitting people in and welcoming people in. So it also has like that dynamic, which is very sweet. So in the end, 4.5 stars, really great. Then I finished an amazing audiobook, and that was Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby. This book is definitely special. This book is violent. Keep that in mind. S.A. Cosby likes writing about violent men, but he does it so exceptionally well. So this book was just phenomenal. In this one, we follow two men. They both had sons that were gay, and the sons were married. And at the beginning of the book, the sons were shot in front of a restaurant. And so now that the sons are dead, the dads kind of have to figure out like their feelings because they never accepted their sons while they were alive. They also had a daughter, so now this little toddler needs to be taken care of. They have to like accept her as their granddaughter. Then stuff happens so that they try to find out what actually happened to their sons. So they get sucked into this mystery as well, and the only way to solve it is with a lot of violence. Now, I absolutely loved this book. I loved the way it forced these fathers to deal with the fact that they were terrible. Also, that while they are kind of doing this for their sons, they're mostly doing it for themselves, and that it won't weigh out the things they haven't done while their sons were alive. So I love this. This also talks about race in a very interesting way too, because one of the fathers is a black man and one of the fathers is a white man. So they also have discussions about that. And the way this book works is basically you have these two guys in a car driving around, having these conversations, then getting somewhere, hurting some people, getting back in the car, driving somewhere else. This might sound bad, but it's actually pretty genius because these conversations in the car, they never feel forced. They make sense because, yeah, they are just like stuck in that car now, so they talk. You know what I mean? I loved it. So 4.5 stars for that as well. Absolutely recommend. However, if you haven't read S.A. Cosby before, I would say maybe start with Blacktop Wasteland, because with that one, I felt a little bit more like I cared about the main character. The main character wasn't quite such an asshole, so I will link my review for that as well down below. Then my like big project of the month was reading Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. This is a chunky book and it took me forever to read. I really didn't think it would take me that long. But in this one, we really get into the lives of these characters. We really like get deep down and yeah, get to know these characters, and we basically follow them more or less through their whole lives. Now, this one again focuses on twins. We do have again a girl and a boy. We mainly follow the girl, Marianne, but we also follow her brother Jamie. Now, we start this book out actually before they were born in the way, because we also learn a little bit about their parents, specifically their father. And then we see how they ended up living with their uncle and growing up in this small village. While the brother starts to have an interest in art, the sister is obsessed with flying planes, and that will get her into kind of situations that are very dark and dire. So again, in this one, we do have sexual violence, so keep that in mind if you want to pick this book up. The descriptions were actually pretty horrifying as well, for me personally. Obviously, it depends on like how you read stuff and what your head does with it. But yeah, this one, definitely a book I would recommend. I also gave this one 4.5 stars, I think. This, as I said, it does a real deep dive into the lives of these people, and we do have some characters left and right that we learn a little bit more about. But ultimately, what the kind of hook of this book is that Marion tries, as like an adult, to fly around the world, crossing like both of the poles. Basically, that's what she's attempting to do. So that would be the great circle that you can do around the earth. And she does that with another person, basically her navigator, and they never make it. On the last little bit, right before New Zealand, they vanish. And it's a little bit about that, but it's also so much more. So it's not like a mystery where like, oh, like what happened, like where did they vanish. You do have that kind of in the background, but it's much more about like, how did this girl even learn how to fly planes? And yeah, I think it's like an interesting time period as well to look at, because we do have the time around both of the world wars, and in the first one they're still a little bit too small, but in the second one they're like full on involved, and it comes with a lot of hardship. Now this book again was more queer than I anticipated. However, you have to read 400 pages to get to it, because Marion actually seems to be bisexual. She does have sexual and romantic relationships with both men and women. So that takes a while to come into the book, but it is there. And there's also other characters that are queer that are talked about in here. However, I wouldn't say in a very like happy ending way, because of the times that we're looking at in this book. Very much, as I said, focused around the times of the world wars. So overall, I would say if you're looking for a book that you can really sink into for a couple of days, maybe when you have like a reading week off, this is a great choice, but it is also chunky and it will take you a while to read it. And then we made it to the last book for my Magical Readathon TBR, and that was Cheese Sweet Home Volume 10. So we're getting close to the end with this one. This has 12 volumes in total. This is a manga series for children about a small cat called Chi. At the beginning of the series, she gets lost, she loses her mom and her siblings, and then is adopted by a human family. And it's all about that and Chi, and how Chi is very cute. I gave this one 3.5 stars because it's just cute, you know? But if I had children, I would make them read this. Then I finished my last audiobook for the month, and that was The Lamb by Lucy Rose. This, again, is a cannibalism horror book, so be warned. This one was definitely interesting. In this one, we follow a girl, I think she's around 12 years old, and she's telling us about her mother and the way they live together in a cottage in the woods where a lot of people go missing and then end up on their plates. So this is an interesting cannibalism book because we have this young character who basically grew up eating people and doesn't really know anything else. And then at the start of the like actual story that we see in this book, a woman gets to the house. Her name is Eden, and instead of killing and eating her, the mother falls in love with her together. And it's kind of about that. This book dives into the idea of motherhood and parenthood and making sacrifices for your children, but in a like negative way. Like if the only way you can see your child is as something you had to sacrifice for and not something that you actually wanted or love. So this is again a kind of heavy book because of that, because of those themes, but also because it's like cannibalism. They are actually eating people. And again, we do have some kind of like nice food description. Every once in a while, they do a meal without people. And Eden is the one that kind of brings this enjoyment into the family, but also in the end is kind of what makes our main character question things and start to develop her own thoughts and feelings about her life. So I had a good time with it, but it is a very special book, and I would say check out some kind of like reading sample first, because this narrative voice of a 12-year-old that has also lived like this very sheltered life is very unique, and it can work or it can't. So yeah, keep that in mind if you want to pick up the book. But I also really loved the way the audiobook was narrated with this one. And then the last book I finished for September, again, is a book I have weird feelings about. And this one is My Friends by Fredrik Backman. Now, first things first, I do regret reading this book. And I think if I had known what this book actually is about, I wouldn't have read it. That being said, this book, if you read the synopsis, it is about a painting. It's a painting of the sea, and in a corner, very small, in the painting, there is a pier with 3 kids on it. And this is the story of these kids, of the painting, but also of a teenager who, because of things that happen, ends up owning this painting. And this book is all about childhood trauma. And it's about abusive parents, and it's about pain. It's about how your whole life is shaped by this pain that you experience as a child, as a teenager. And I don't like reading about that because I have had my own experiences. This book brought up so much. My mental health was not great reading this book, like really not great. I just didn't have a good experience with this. And I said in my vlog that there is probably people who feel seen reading this book and take something like of value from this. But for me, it was just a reminder of the things that I don't think about. So I can function in this life. So in the end, this really didn't do anything good for me, like in the sense that I had enjoyment. It made me cry a lot. It made me feel a lot, but not in a way that I wanted to feel. And then also, I think the main story of this really isn't that great. And I also felt kind of misled with some of the stuff that was in this book and the way it was portrayed. I just really felt like it was kind of like intentional kind of manipulation. And yeah, I didn't love that. I don't think this is a bad book, but this is really just a book that was not for me at all. So in the end, I gave this one 3.5 stars because it's not bad, but I didn't want to read it. Okay, and with that, we have come to the end of the book reviews. Now, quickly, I wanted to do a little bit of a chat about my sabbatical, how things are going, seeing as we're nearing the end now, and also because I forgot doing that at the end of August. So I think I'm going to talk a little bit about August and September here. And if you're interested, you can stay. If you're not, that's totally fine. You won't hurt my feelings by leaving early. But yeah, basically, we are now very much near the end of the sabbatical, 1 month left, and it doesn't feel great, I must be honest. I really thought that at this point I would like look forward to working again, but so far that has not happened. So maybe it still will, we will see. it also doesn't feel great because I feel like now I have finished all of my big plans for the sabbatical. So the last big thing I did in August and September, obviously, was my Italy trip. I went through Italy for 2 weeks, and it was like something I wanted to do for many, many years. And so doing it was absolutely amazing. It was also a bit of a challenge, but I loved it. And yeah, just coming back from that, I had a little bit of a struggle to kind of recover at first. You know, my migraines and all of that, just like body stuff, things were hurting. And yeah, so I have now recovered again, and I started doing more workout stuff again, because that's like one thing I wanted to work on throughout the sabbatical, but I really haven't. I really haven't started working out more again, which makes me really sad. But also, you know, it's just how it is. And I think summer for me is always a hard time to work out because I like to do it at home. I do not have air conditioning, so if it's like really hot, I just struggle to find the motivation to sweat even more. So I think now for the autumn, it's definitely going to be more easy again for me to do some workouts at home. But yeah, this is like one of the big fails of the sabbatical, I guess. Apart from that, I definitely did a lot better with my reading goals in August and September. I feel like because now the end really is looming, I'm doing better with that. And now that we're starting into autumn, I think I will also do a lot more baking. I already have started doing a lot more baking. Like I made a lemon cake, I made my first pumpkin cake, I made some pumpkin cookies. So things are going well on the baking front, and I definitely want to keep that going because, yeah, baking in fall is just the best. So for my other hobbies, I really don't feel like anything has changed. I haven't really done much. I haven't watched too many movies. I haven't watched too many TV shows. I haven't played The Sims. I've really just been mostly reading and traveling. So I guess that's like a learning about myself, is that even if I have more time, I still prioritize reading quite a bit, and all of my other hobbies are just like kind of in the background. So that's weird. But yeah, now I only have that 1 month left, and I do have like a couple of small things I still want to do, but no more like exciting travel plans. So I feel like this is definitely a bit depressing, and I also feel my anxiety coming back quite a bit. So we'll see how it goes. I'll do my best. I can't say I'm excited about this coming to an end. But we're coming to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed watching this. Definitely let me know, how did your September go? Did you participate in Magical Readathon, or did you just read books on your own as a normal person? Let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear from you, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye!